Monarch Legacy of Monsters is a new show that'll be on Apple TV Plus later this week. It'll start this Friday, I believe. There's a 2-episode premiere, I think, and then it's going to be an episode a week. I got to see a huge chunk of the season, a lot more than some of the reviews that have already gone up, because Apple's been sending stuff and they asked us to wait a little bit just in case. And in this series, we're following Kate and Kentaro, two siblings who have found themselves after the aftermath of the San Francisco fight in the 2014 Godzilla movie, as they're trying to discover some secrets which their father left behind and figure out what he was working on. This eventually leads them down a web of conspiracies and all kinds of theories as to what these monsters are, what these titans can do, and it eventually leads them to Lee Shaw, the younger version of whom is played by Wyatt Russell and the older version is Kurt Russell. Right there is a goldmine casting decision when it comes to the two versions of the character played by Wyatt and Kurt Russell. I think this is great. Like, if you actually had to pitch that to someone and you said, I have this character and I need two people who are younger and older to play this in the most, organic way possible, who do we cast? Wyatt and Kurt Russell. Perfect. Let's market that. That is such a great idea. And both of them get a lot to do in this show, which I'll talk more about in a second. But as I'm pretty sure people have figured it out, this is taking place in the same universe as the recent Godzilla movies have in the Hollywood sense of things. There's Godzilla movies that are going on with Toho as well, which are doing their own thing, and there's this Monsterverse with Kong Skull Island as well, and there's the new Empire, which is coming out very, very soon. And when it comes to the Monsterverse movies, I've enjoyed some of them a lot. Some of them have been okay. I loved the 2014 Godzilla, in fact. I thought it was a really well done movie. Yes, not a lot of Godzilla, but I really liked the way they handled a lot of the scale and the magnitude of certain things. Like, you really felt like Gareth Edwards captured that super well. I enjoyed Kong Skull Island fine. I think there were some issues with it, but visually it was incredibly striking. Godzilla King of the Monsters, I felt about the same as I did with Kong, but I did enjoy Godzilla vs. Kong. I thought that was a very fun movie. Monarch and the entire arc when it comes to what they've done over the movies is a little weird. Like, there seems to be a lot of gaps when it comes to execution of certain ideas. And it's almost like the show acknowledges that and it's filling in those gaps. It's taking place between the first two Godzilla movies in this franchise, so it's obviously taking into effect the tone and structure of the 2014 movie, while also moving into some of the bigger stuff that eventually you're going to see in King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong. And I think that when it comes to focusing on the Monarch stuff, this show does excel. Now, I have to say this. There is obviously a huge emphasis on human beings in this particular series. That's to be expected. It's taking place around the organization, and obviously you're going to get a lot of human drama. If that's something that you were not a fan of when it came to the series so far, then I feel like you might have some issues getting in with Monarch for a while. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it does take a while for it to establish the character arcs that it's working with. There are times where initially with the characters, you're a little on and off with them. You're not fully on board with everybody. Like Kentaro, the brother, you're just kind of like, don't really... I'm not sure if I really like this guy or can stand this guy, but the show knows that. It acknowledges that, and it works its plot a certain way that eventually as the episodes progress, you sort of see what's gone on with him that's led him to this point. And I really like the way the show handles those character arcs as a result. There's a lot of stuff that eventually builds. There's a lot of patience involved as a result of that when it comes to its characters, including our main character, Kate, who is really, really interesting and again has been through a lot and has led to this point and has made her the way she is. She was also someone who experienced the San Francisco attacks very much up front. She was right there on the Golden Gate Bridge when Godzilla first showed up and smashed through it in that very visually striking scene. But it immediately does bring to question, it's like, what happened after that? It's like he moved past that one bus, which was with Aaron Taylor Johnson's kid, and they made it out, but then what about the rest of it? There was a whole evacuation going on. And the show taps into that as well. There's lots of connections as a result of that come up in this show. There are things that you've seen and heard in the movies that definitely tie into that. And I would say that that's something that's a lot of fun. If you're a fan of these movies, and then you're going to be very excited when you see certain things. There are certain things that make a little more sense now, narratively speaking. There's a big jump that happens in King of the Monsters, which I always had an issue with, which somewhat adds up now. Like, there is some logic to it, especially when you look at later stuff. And even Godzilla versus Kong, there's a couple of things that make a little more sense now. Also, I think the cast is pretty good. Like I already said, Kurt and Wyatt Russell are pretty great. Also, the main two siblings are pretty great. Kiersey Clemens, who plays a computer hacker, she's also really good in this. And the young cast, because you do go back in time, and you're meeting with Keiko, who is Kate's grandmother, and also with Bill Randa, who was played by John Goodman in Kong Skull Island. You're meeting a younger version of him. And so there's a lot of scenes which go back and forth in terms of time, and I thought that was also really, really effective. Sometimes it's a little abrasive because there are some moments where time goes back and forth and it's not quite as seamless as other sequences. One of the best uses of it was in this one episode which involves an emergence. I can't really go in more into detail as to what said emergence is, but there is a very nice way they handle the edits around that moment, and I thought, oh, that's really, really cool. And that it was one of my favorite moments of the entire series. I was gushing about it to my friend last night. Also, I just have to say, this is a TV show, and we've come so far now when it comes to what TV shows can do in a visual sense. But you can't help but remark at the fact that every time you see Godzilla in this show, or any Titan for that matter, when those things emerge, it looks incredible. The fact that this is on a TV screen and people can watch this on their phones is insane to me. Because there are certain sequences that would sound and look absolutely incredible on the big screen. And the CGI is no joke. There's a few sequences, like I said, which are just that good. Like you're gonna see them on your screen, hopefully a 4K screen, because watch this in the clearest quality imaginable, and they just look massive, and so good, and it has a really pumping score to it as well. Like I said, the human drama, it does take a while to build up. There is a lot of stuff that initially happens, which you're sort of taking a while to get into, but then as it goes on, and it also improves in pacing, it does take a few episodes to really kick in a high gear. Once it kicks into high gear, though, I was riveted. I was into every single thing after that fact. And I would say leading into the second half of the season, I was having a really, really great time with it. I just think that it takes a little while to get there. But that's okay. That's something that's totally fine. It's also why I didn't review it so far. Because when the screeners initially came in, there were only a couple of episodes. And it's a 10-episode series. I figured I can't really talk about this. And I need some more time to watch and to really, figure out what I want to say. So I'm sort of glad I waited a little bit to talk a little bit more in detail. I still don't know 9 and 10, so I'll do different videos on that separately. Like Loki, I just did episodes 1 to 4 in one video, and then 5 and 6. I might do the same thing over here, which is totally fine. But it is safe to say that I have really enjoyed my time with Monarch Legacy of Monsters so far. I really like the human drama stuff that eventually builds along the way. The kaiju sequences are phenomenal. Some of the timeline stuff is really interesting. The way they've connected the dots to other movies in the franchise, also really, really cool. It has a tone and structure similar to the 2014 movie though. So you do get a lot of moments where there's hints of stuff and then eventually it builds into a big sequence. And it does that for a lot of the show. There's a lot of that. But as I said, as it goes on, the tone also adapts with the rest of the, franchise, which we've seen so far. So you get a lot more Skull Island, King of the Monsters stuff going on as well when it comes to that. And so I'm excited for people to check out Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I hope you guys enjoy the show. And if you're a fan of the Monsterverse, then I hope you're going to have a good time with it. Although, like I said before, if the human stuff was something that you just did not like, then this is almost entirely that. There's kaiju sequences, yes, but the focus is the organization. That is first and foremost. There are some logic jumps, I will say this. There's a couple of points where characters will do something and it's the most, like, you can't do that. Like, there's a point where a character is looking at something and deciphers something, and there's, like, the whole idea is, like, look at this over here. If you point at this and you point this, it's like, there are 30 different things over there. There's no way you figured that out. But I guess for, plot convenience and the characters showing up in a specific location, you do kind of need that. I'm trying to be as vague as possible when talking about it because I don't want to give any spoilers away. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. And as always, if you like this, please do subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the movies. There we go.